Hong Kong Metropolitan University, now the city's first applied sciences university. The observatory forecasts 5 to 8 tropical cyclones in the vicinity of Hong Kong this year. And Indonesia's former defense minister formally announced winner of the presidential election, but rival candidates contest the result. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The Hong Kong Metropolitan University has become the first local applied sciences university. The Education Bureau today revealed some other institutions have expressed interest in becoming a UAS. Mimo Singai reports.
This was the establishment ceremony held today at the Hong Kong Metropolitan University, as it became the first university of applied sciences in the city. Students will be educated and trained for a career in the technical professions. The ceremony was attended by government officials, such as Secretary for Education Choi Lin. Choi said the university have fulfilled multiple criteria for UAS status, including governance, management, and student support. President of HKMU Lam Kwon Sing said the university has been in touch with different sectors to explore opportunities for setting up new study programs. For instance, Lam said they hope more pilots can be trained because of the lack of such talent in the city. Lam added the public should change its thinking that studying for applied subjects is a second choice. Promoting universities of applied sciences were mentioned in the government's policy address last year, aiming to enhance the status of vocational and professional education. Deputy Secretary for Education Esmond Lee revealed that other institutions also hope to become a UAS. But Lee said authorities have not set a target as to how many institutions should obtain the UAS title. Mims 9, TVB News.
The observatory has forecast that 5 to 8 tropical cyclones will enter within a 500-kilometer radius of Hong Kong this year. The city is expected to enter into a typhoon season sometime around June before ending around October. Total rainfall is predicted to be within the normal range, between 2,100 and 2,700 millimeters. The average temperature this year is expected to be warmer than usual. The observatory noted there is a high chance 2024 will rank among the top 10 hottest years since records began in 1884. The South Korean government announced today it will start suspending licenses of striking junior doctors beginning next week for violating the government's back-to-work order. Second Vice Health Minister Park Min-soo urged the junior doctors to return to hospitals. South Korean trainee doctors have been on strike for over a month, protesting the government's decision to raise the medical school admission quota by 2,000. Despite doctors' protests, the government is determined to push ahead with a plan to add new medical school slots. More than 90% of the country's 13,000 medical interns and residents have been on strike. It has caused hundreds of canceled surgeries and other treatments at hospitals, with government officials earlier saying the strikers could even face prosecution. Former Indonesian Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto was announced the winner of last month's presidential election late Wednesday. Chinese President Xi Jinping congratulated Indonesia's new president, pointing out that China and Indonesia are traditional friendly neighbors. Subianto was running against two former governors who have contested the result in court over alleged irregularities. Tracy Furness has more.
One of the world's largest democracies has a new president. Former Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto beat out two former governors for the top job, receiving 58.6% of votes. He included a last-minute running mate, the populist son of President Joko Widodo. Subianto said, "We have been elected by the Indonesian people, and the mandate of the Indonesian people is now in our hands, and I will be president, the government for all Indonesian people." Former Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan, who received 24.9% of votes, called on the Constitutional Court on Thursday for an election rerun, citing irregularities. He called for the exclusion of Widodo's son as vice president, whose last-minute inclusion unfairly swayed the vote. This was backed by a third presidential candidate, Central Java Governor Ganjar Pranowo, who received 16.5% of the vote. Their legal team said Subianto's victory was the result of interference by the administration. While many were happy with the results as crowds on Jakarta's streets were singing and dancing, 5,000 police officers were on alert in the capital anticipating protests. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping congratulated Subianto, saying the two sides have opened a new chapter in building a China-Indonesia community for a shared future. And the US State Department said Washington looks forward to partnering with the president-elect.
We extend our sincerest congratulations to the Indonesian president-elect. Under our comprehensive strategic partnership, we're going to work hand in hand to better deliver for the future of our citizens, and we look forward to continuing to engage on that and partnering with the president-elect and his administration when they take office in October.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. Federal Reserve officials signaled they still expect to cut their key interest rate 3 times in 2024. Despite signs that inflation was surprisingly high at the start of the year, the Fed predicted fewer rate cuts in 2025 and slightly raised their inflation forecasts. After ending their latest meeting, the officials kept their benchmark rate unchanged for a 5th straight time. Still, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell noted inflation is still too high and that the path forward is uncertain.
As labor market tightness has eased and progress on inflation has continued, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are coming into better balance. We believe that our policy rate is likely at its peak for this tightening cycle, and that if the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year. The economic outlook is uncertain, however, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks.
According to a law enforcement report, Angela Chow, a shipping industry CEO and sister-in-law to U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, was intoxicated when she drove into a pond and died last month in Texas. Chow died on the night of February 10th after having dinner with a large group at a ranch west of Austin. The investigation report said a friend of Chow told detectives that the 50-year-old called her at 11:42 p.m. and said the car was in the water and she was trapped inside. The report also said when law enforcement officials and firefighters arrived, they went into the water and attempted to enter the vehicle. They broke the window on the driver's side and pulled Chow out of the car and brought her to shore, where she was pronounced dead at 1:40 a.m. The investigation by the Blanco County Sheriff's Office concluded Chow's death was an unfortunate accident, and her blood alcohol level was nearly 3 times the state's legal limit. Chow was the chair and CEO of her family's shipping business, the Foremost Group, and the president of her father's philanthropic organization, the Foremost Foundation. Welcome back. More than 420,000 people have participated in the government's colorectal cancer, or CRC, screening program since it was launched 8 years ago. For every 100 people tested, more than 8 have been found to have tumors or cancer. The government has urged eligible residents to join the program for cancer prevention and treatment. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Cancer remains one of the top killers of residents in Hong Kong, with colorectal cancer affecting a lot of people. The government's CRC cancer screening pilot program was launched in 2016 before it was fully rolled out in 2020. The scheme allows residents aged between 50 and 75 without colorectal cancer symptoms to undergo screening once every 2 years, as facilitated by more than 1,200 doctors taking part in the scheme. The screening process is composed of 2 phases. If the person being screened in the initial phase tests positive for their fecal occult blood test, they will receive a colonoscopy. A recent population health survey report indicates 40% of those aged between 50 and 75 joined the program. That's 12 percentage points higher than that of the 2014-15 period. As of the end of last year, more than 420,000 people have participated in the program. Over half of the 64,000 people who received a colonoscopy were found to have adenomas and polyps in their colon. Another 2,900 were confirmed to have colorectal cancer. That means around 8 out of every 100 people in the program were either found to have tumors in the colon or colorectal cancer. Government data indicated that around 60% of those diagnosed with colorectal cancer via the program were in the early stage of the disease. Less than 40% of those who did not participate in the scheme but had colorectal cancer were at the early stage of the disease. Dr. Rita Ho from the Department of Health's Non-Communicable Disease Branch said the survival rates of first-stage and second-stage patients are over 90 and 80% respectively. But she stressed survival rates will decline if patients only see their doctors when they experience symptoms, as that implies the cancer has already progressed to stage 3 or 4. The Department of Health urged residents aged 50 or above to keep a healthy lifestyle, such as eating less processed meat and maintaining a healthy weight. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Antiviral treatment can inhibit replication of the hepatitis B virus, but a medical research team from the Chinese University of Hong Kong said doctors should consider the health condition of chronic hepatitis B patients when prescribing antiviral drugs. That's because the team discovered that one type of antiviral drug can lead to higher bone fracture risks among patients. Mimo Singhai reports.
Between 2020 and 2022, about 6.4% of Hong Kong's population suffered from chronic hepatitis B, a liver disease caused by hepatitis virus infection, or HBV. To treat the disease, doctors often prescribe oral antiviral drugs, with endocavir and tenofovir disoproxil fumarate being the most commonly used in the city. While the drugs can inhibit HBV replication, there are downsides. ETV can create a cross-resistance effect with earlier hepatitis B medications. Patients prescribed TTF may experience renal dysfunction and bone density loss. The low density increases the risk of fracture. In the research, medical researchers from the Chinese University of Hong Kong analyzed data from more than 40,000 chronic hepatitis B patients, aged 60 or above, who took ETV and TTF between 2008 and 2022. The team discovered that long-term users of TTF face a higher fracture risk than ETV patients after 2 years of treatment.
Quite unsurprising to see that the risk of fracture between the two groups do not differ a lot in the first 2 years. It is because that the decline in the bone mineral density takes time, and so after 2 years of treatment, we see the risk difference starts to differ.
Quite a significant proportion of them would develop like cirrhotic complication and liver cancers in long run. At the same time, because these patients are getting older, they have many other comorbidity, other diseases, so their risk of having either complications from the liver disease itself or the complication from the treatment will increase with time.
To avoid fractures, the research team said the elderly can take several measures, such as consuming sufficient calcium, vitamin D, and protein to support bone health and muscle growth. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
A new collection of artifacts dating back to China's Song and Yuan dynasties will be on display to the public at Sung Wong Toi MTR station tomorrow. The updated Sacred Hill exhibition, curated by the government's Antiquities and Monuments Office, has around 70% of the artifacts replaced with new ones. The number of archaeological pieces on display has also gone up from 400 to 500. The exhibition features a new Sung Wong Toi and maritime trade section. It showcases greenware, ceramicware, and writing instruments unearthed during the construction of the MTR station, giving visitors an idea about life in Hong Kong during the Song and Yuan dynasties from 960 AD to 1368. Today is the last day of Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Australia. He met with former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating, who had earlier criticized Canberra's military pact with the US and the UK. Sakura Ip reports from Sydney, Australia.
On the last day of Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Australia, he met with former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating at the Consulate General of People's Republic of China in Sydney. Wang Yi praised Keating's long-time concern and support for the development of China-Australia relations. He said that both countries' economies and interests are linked as they are both located in the Asia-Pacific region and both should pursue win-win cooperation with trust. He also said Australia should set up policies based on its own fundamental interests, given that it's an ally of the United States and a partner of China. Keating, who served as Prime Minister of Australia from 1991 to 1996, has criticised Australia's security partnership agreement with the United States and Britain. Wang Yi then also met with New South Wales Governor Stephen Collins. Foreign Minister Wang Yi said he's most impressed by how supportive all Australian sectors are on the strengthening of bilateral relations and cooperations in various fields. He will conclude his 5-day trip to New Zealand and Australia and head back to China this evening. An Australian academic believed that Wang's visit is a positive sign of relations between the two countries. It also prepares for Chinese Premier Li Qiang's possible visit to Australia later this year.
These are positive steps, and it's time they happen, because you can't really deal with your biggest trading partner at a great distance and by not talking. It starts to kind of whittle away from the relationship that you have, and of course you want a relationship that has potential to grow and where you have a degree of mutual trust and confidence.
He also expects the two countries to collaborate more on trade, investment and technology. Sakura Ip, TVB News, Sydney.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.